from the department of what do you have to do? What do you have to do to get any appreciation? I cannot believe what a difference a day makes. Within this sport, it is possibly the most obvious thing I have ever seen to come back to the original question that I just asked you of what is it you have to do? Okay, so Stipe goes out, beats Daniel Cormier. Stipe was the most decorated heavyweight of all time going into that fight. I really don't know where the hell that comes from. People have said this, people that I trust, media outlets that I read. I don't know what it is that Stipe did that made him the most decorated. I believe that ties back into the fact that he had more successful heavyweight title defenses than anybody. I don't know that that equals most decorated, but whatever. That was still the narrative and the dialogue out there. He goes out and defeats Daniel Cormier. The storyline of the evening, complete with the fact that it was on SportsCenter, is that Stipe is the greatest heavyweight of all time. Everybody was drinking to that. Everybody was saying that. Everybody was reporting that. Everybody was right to have that opinion, but Sunday goes by. Lines come out on Monday morning for two mythical fights of which are not signed, pending or upcoming. Stipe versus Ngannou and Stipe versus John Jones. Stipe was a 2.5-to-1 underdog in one of those fights and a 3-to-1 underdog in the other. The same guy who we just declared and anointed and rightfully recognized as the greatest of all time. How do we come to that conclusion while simultaneously believing two other guys can beat him, one 2-to-1 and one 3-to-1? What do you have to do? And if you're poor Stipe, where you just did everything right, you trained right, you slept right, you ate right, you lived right, you're in the middle of a pandemic when you're a first responder, but you have another obligation, which is to defend the heavyweight championship of the world, you do them all. You check every box, you're a great guy. You don't do anything in your life that is tabloid worthy, if you will. You do everything right. You got to have a little time to rest. He's got to be sore and tired. He's got to be a little banged up. I saw him get poked in his eye. I know that going into this fight, one of the delays of the fight wasn't only the pandemic, it was the fact that he was dealing with an eye injury. Now I'm speculating for you. He hasn't said anything about the eye. But I'm trying to prove the point that he has a right to, exhale. You go home, you celebrate a little bit with your inner circle. Maybe you click on a couple of the links out there. You read a few nice things about you before the news cycles pass. It's too late, and it's yesterday thought. He didn't get one day. Not one day. We go from Saturday, he's the greatest ever, went into this acknowledging he was the most decorated ever, whatever that means, but we acknowledged it. He closes the book on the argument who the best ever is. Two guys can apparently beat him. One guy who's never even done it. One guy who is chicking out of the only time that he's ever even been offered to do it is apparently going to move up and beat him up. And another guy, by the way, who already had 25 minutes to do it and lost all 25 of those minutes. I think that that's an interesting conclusion to come to. I haven't parted with one of my hard-earned dollars to make believe that those odds are wrong. Maybe they're right. I suppose we would need a minute. As a matter of fact, why don't we take one now? Stipe versus Ngannou. How's that fight going to go? Well, already seen it. Don't really have to guess. Saw the same two guys doing the same exact thing under the same rules at the same weight class for the same championship. Seen it all. And it wasn't a Daniel Stipe moment where Stipe's out there. Look at the first fight. Stipe's out there controlling the fight. Daniel catches him. Okay, great. Let's run this one back, but who knows what's going to happen. Based on what we've seen, who knows what's going to happen. Stipe versus Ngannou was extremely uncompetitive, extremely one-sided. All three judges had it the same way, which was every round Stipe and not a maybe about it. So then you are left with the question of, well, what's going to be different? Is Ngannou changed? We know for sure Stipe hasn't. Stipe has not slowed one single bit. there is a reasonable conclusion that you could come to that he's actually gotten better. There's no metric you could look at to believe that he has digressed, which means, okay, has Ngannou gotten better? And not just as a fighter, as an athlete, has he gotten specifically better at having a smaller, faster man close the distance, get to his hips, and drag him down to the mat? That's the question you have to ask. Has he gotten better at that? If you conclude no, but you still want to bet on Ngannou, okay, great. Then that only leaves you with one other option, which is, has he gotten better at getting up off the bottom? You're going to have a hard time saying yes to either one of those. Doesn't mean that you're wrong if you do say yes, but you would have a hard time saying yes based on the evidence. By example, Stipe is the last guy to shoot on Ngannou. Stipe took him down 5 times with 5 shots. Nobody else has ever fired one. Cain Velasquez, great wrestler, never fired 1 shot. Just by example, Rosenstruck, who doesn't have that tool, did not have that tool to not even use, never fired a shot, just by example. So we don't have anything to actually turn to and conclude that, yes, Ngannou's better at stopping takedowns. We have not seen anybody try. We haven't seen him in a scramble, so now we're trusting it happened in the practice room. Same would go with his ability to get off the bottom or his inability. We haven't seen it because we haven't seen him on bottom. So if you come to the conclusion that, yes, things are going to be different because Francis has made the appropriate adjustments, I would only be curious to ask you, before you do go to the window and put some money down, with what evidence are you basing that opinion? This isn't a court of law, and you don't have to supply me with that evidence. I would only offer to you that you may want to consider it.